Welcome to the Business Plus Accounting video training series. In this episode, we'll look at accounts payable. Accounts payable allows you to pay your vendors the money that you owe them. You can do this in two ways. One is the short method, which is basically printing manual checks for bills that you know you have. However, it doesn't allow you to keep track of the actual invoices as you receive them and know what your current outstanding payables are. The second method is through entering vendor invoices and tracking your vendor invoices through the accounts payable module and using the system to select which invoices you want to pay and then printing the checks. For the first method, the manual method, you'll simply go into the checkbook manual check option. From here you can add a check, modify a check that has not been posted yet, or delete a check that has not been posted yet. You can also print an edit list showing you currently outstanding checks. If we select add, first we key in the check number. The software will make sure that you don't reuse check numbers. The next step is to enter who the check is being paid to. This record will either match a vendor that already is defined on the system, or it will create a new record for a vendor with this information. The date that the check is written, and finally the amount of the check. If this is a new record, if the software did not find a vendor with the name that you entered, then you'll be prompted for the address and the rest of the information about the vendor. You can put in a memo describing what the check is for, and then the accounts that the check needs to be coded against. If you've defined some default accounts for that vendor, or a default general ledger account for that vendor, then that's the account that will appear automatically here. If not, you'll have to specify an account that you want to use. Now, if you need to have multiple line items because the invoice needs to be coded to multiple accounts, you simply have to indicate how much you want coded to each account. When you're finished, you can press F3 to save. You can also press F7 to insert a new line, or you can just add a line at the bottom. You can use F8 to select the pick list of accounts to pick an account that you want to apply that invoice to. Or if you decide that a line is in error, then you can use F9 to delete that line. And to abort the entire check, you can press F10. Once you save the check, it'll ask if you want to print a check. If you select yes, you'll be prompted whether to send it to the printer or to the screen. Typically, checks will be printed to the printer on a check stock. Check forms are available through us and through companies that provide checks that are compatible with our software. Please feel free to contact Business Software Solutions at 801-294-3300 for information on obtaining checks. We'll send this check to the screen, however, so that you can see somewhat the layout of the check. At that point, the check has been entered, however it hasn't been posted, and we can still change the check if we need to. If, for example, we realize that we didn't write the check for enough, we want to pay 2 invoices perhaps, we can do that as long as we make sure that the totals all add up. So we'll add $50. And again, we'll be asked if we want to print a check. I'm going to say no. And then finally, if we wanted to delete the check, we could delete it by keying in the check number there or selecting it from the pick list. I do not want to, so I'm going to press F10. And finally, we can print an edit list. The edit list shows us the current general ledger accounts that are going to be hit based on outstanding checks that have been entered but not posted yet. Once you've entered your manual checks, the next step would be to post the checks. Which we would do from here, post AP and checkbook checks. If you don't want to use the manual check method, if you'd like to track more information about your payables, then you'll come here to enter vendor invoices. The accounts payable process, the standard accounts payable process, consists of entering invoices first, then selecting invoices that you want to pay, and finally printing those checks and then posting the checks. Let's look at the process of entering vendor invoices. When we enter vendor invoices, the first step is simply to create the invoice. Again, we have the vendor invoice screen. We have the add, modify, delete functionality. We can pick a current invoice on the system, or in this case, product. We can go navigate through the invoices that are on the system already. I'm going to add an invoice. We can use the pick list to select a vendor. The invoice number that vendor has assigned to us. We enter the total for the invoice. The invoice date, due date, and discount date are calculated based on today's date and the terms that are defined. However, we can override the invoice date, and we can also override the due date and discount date for this invoice if we need to. If a portion of the invoice is not discountable because it is a bill for freight, then we can put the freight amount there and it will adjust the discount that's available to us. We can also enter a PO number. If this PO number has been defined in our system using the vendor orders module, we'll see the total amount for that PO. Sometimes invoices from a vendor will be split across a PO, or several invoices together will make up the entire PO. If we have a default account defined for this vendor, then that account will also appear here in the general ledger as the default first account. We can use the pick list to pick our accounts, and then we can specify how much we're assigning to that account. You'll notice that the software will show you how much you have left to assign as you enter these amounts. Pick a different account. Office supplies, $50. At this point in time, we're ready to save the invoice, so we can press the Save button, and we now have a completed invoice. The pre-posting report will show us all of the invoices that are currently waiting to be posted. And then we'll post the invoices once we're sure that they're correct. The accounts payable posting report can be printed so that you have a hard copy showing you the items that were posted to your general ledger regarding this set of invoices. The other options that we have here, first we can print an aging report. The aging report allows you to print a detail or a summary. The detail will show you all invoices. The summary will only show you a total for each account, for each vendor account. The aging snapshot, the AP aging as of, allows you to pick a date that you want to see your aging as of, so that it can go back and show you a snapshot. The aging report again shows you the invoice number with the age based on the different aging periods. When viewing invoices, invoices fall into three categories. The first is the group of invoices that have been entered but have not been posted. Currently we have none because we've posted all of the invoices. The second group is invoices that have been posted but have not been paid and posted. So that's where all of our invoices stand at this point in time. Finally, we can see invoices that have been paid and posted. And those invoices we have none also. Those are the three stages that invoices go through. If we want to reverse a posted invoice, essentially that's the same as deleting an invoice once it's been posted. You would enter the vendor number and the invoice number, and you can pick those off of the list. I do not want to reverse that. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on there. And finally, you can reprint a posting report for an age date, which would show us again all of the invoices that have been posted on that day, which was today. Once your invoices have been entered, the next step is to select which invoices we want to pay. Invoices can be selected by due date, so we could enter in a date and all invoices that need to be paid by that date would be selected. We don't have any invoices due by that date. We could select invoices by vendor, so we could select all invoices for a specific vendor that are due by a specific day. Again, none. We could select a specific invoice, which is an invoice number from a vendor to mark for payment. The cash requirements after each selection will show you currently the total amount of the invoices that you've marked to be paid. You can select invoices based on which invoices still have a discount available. Again, you can see both of our invoices that are on the software on the system have a discount available at this point in time. Or you can do a general selection, which simply allows you to go in and say no or yes for each invoice on the system. The invoices that you mark with a yes will then be paid when you print your checks. And finally, you can mark an invoice for a partial payment. If we wanted to pay only half of this invoice, we can see here that the total due is $150, but if we only want to pay $75 now, then we can do that, and we see the cash requirements appropriately. Once we've selected invoices for payment, the next option would be if we determine that we have any invoices marked that we don't currently want to pay, we can take them off the list by going into defer them, and that would be again marking them with a no, and then they would be deferred. Before we print the checks, typically we'll print a cash requirements report. The cash requirements report will show you the invoices that are going to be paid, the amount that's going to be paid, and the total cash requirements to pay those invoices. You'll also see the total amount of the invoice in the case of a partial payment, showing you that there's going to be an amount still due. Once you've run your cash requirements report and are confident that you're printing the right set of checks to pay the right invoices, then you'll select Print AP Checks. Again, no other users can be using the AP system while printing checks or while posting checks. You'll enter the beginning check number. If you have multiple checks being printed for multiple vendors, then those numbers will be auto-incremented. So you'll put in the beginning check number and make sure that you have a stack of checks with consecutive numbers coming after that. The check date is the date you want to print on the check, and then the checks will print to the default printer on your system. Once the checks are printed, the final step is to post the AP and the checkbook checks. Selecting Post will post all manual checks as well as all AP checks that have been generated. If everyone is out of the system, select Yes to continue. You'll be prompted for a posting date as well as the bank account that you want the money taken from to pay these checks. This gives you the option of having multiple bank accounts defined in the system. Then when you post your accounts receivable or when you post your accounts payable, you can select which bank account you'd like those transactions to go against. We'll go ahead and print a report. The report again will look much like the pre-report, showing us the check numbers that we've printed now and the general ledger accounts that we've hit.